y'all, it's Kay from the Literary Apothecary and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about my July reading wrap up, my August TBR. I can't believe today is the last day of July already. July is over. We're swinging into August. This year is just flying by. So July was a little bit of a weird month for me. I read 5 books, 1 essay, and I had 2 DNFs. Out of the books that I did finish, I had 3 5-star books, 2 4.5 stars, 1 4-star, and like I said, 2 DNFs. I'm going to talk quickly about those books that I did finish and the ones that I did DNF very quickly. I'll give some quotes, I'll give my ratings, and then we'll move into my August TBR because, you know, without finishing as many books as usual, I have a lot of books carrying over into August, so let's get right into it. In July, I finished A River Enchanted. This was a 5-star read for me, one of my favorite reads this year. This book was magical, mystical, mysterious, memorable, all of the M's you can think of. I absolutely loved everything about it. Some quotes from this book. "If hearts must break," Jack said, "then they break and remake themselves into stronger vessels. I once thought home was simply a place, 4 walls to hold you at night while you slept. But I was wrong. It's people. It's being with the ones you love and maybe even the ones you hate." Next up, I finished James Pike, American. This is our Joan Didion essay of the month. And Joan Didion has a way of writing about a particular time, place, person, etc. and making you feel like that could be anytime, anywhere, and anyone really in this world. James Pike was a guy, I believe, from the 1960s, late 60s, but his description feels like it could fit some people today in today's society. So that's one of the things that I really, really love about Joan Didion's writing. Next up, I finished Equal Rights by Terry Pratchett. This one I gave 4 out of 5 stars. The story was good, our characters were great, but you could tell that this was an early Terry Pratchett. But because it's still Terry Pratchett, it's still really good. So like I said, 4 out of 5 stars for Equal Rights. And the quote I have for this just made me laugh and just gives you an idea of Terry Pratchett's wit and humor. "Reality returned and tried to pretend that it never left." Next up, I finished A Feast for Crows by George R.R. Martin. This one I gave 4.5 out of 5 stars. This is book 4 in A Song of Ice and Fire series. I loved the different points of view that we got here. We got a lot of our side characters that we hadn't really gotten a lot of in the first couple books. We saw a bunch of different parts of the world, and this whole world that George R.R. Martin has built feels humongous to me, but also like it's all intricately connected together. It's a huge world, but it's all one world. And I have one spoiler-free quote from A Feast for Crows for you all. That is, "The path of faith was a crooked one." Next up is something totally different. We've got Yes Please by Amy Poehler. I listened to the audiobook for this. I needed something completely different from all the fantasy I was reading, something to change things up, and this memoir did everything for me. I gave this one 5 out of 5 stars. It was everything that I needed at that moment. It made me laugh, it made me cry even, and it made me think about my own life in ways that I didn't really expect. And the quote I have from Yes Please is basically what Amy hoped that her readers got out of her memoir, her book. She says, "Like a thick stew, I hope it's full of flavor and it fills you up. But don't ask me to list all of the ingredients." And that made me laugh and set the entire tone for the book. Next up, we have A Crown of Swords by Robert Jordan. This was book 7 in the Wheel of Time series. This one I gave 4.5 out of 5 stars. This was one of my favorite books in the series. We had excellent character development here and excellent plot movement. It was a great installment in this series. And I have 2 quotes from this. They're spoiler free, I think. "If you want to see what a man is made of, push him from a direction he didn't expect." And Min said nothing, but she said it very loudly. fists on her hips and one eyebrow raised high. And that quote right there about Min said everything you need to know about Min, but also set the atmosphere and the tension in that scene. My next two books up are the books that I have DNF'd. So one is a hard DNF, The Altar of My Fate by Michael R. Shuthless. This just did not work for me at all. I did not like the way the females were treated. Most of them were slaves, and they were either fully naked or half naked, and they're just to please the men in the story, and I just could not get on with that. Also, the males were not the way I like my characters to be. Trying to find a respective way of saying this, they were a bit chauvinistic and expected the women to fawn at them, and they were very sexist towards the women and just expected everything to be laid out at them. I did have other issues with the book besides just that. There was a big jump in time, like 3 years suddenly. One of the characters said, 3 years ago, and referenced something we just had in the past chapter. But there was no real development in those 3 years. There was no real change in those 3 years, except for one character not being there. And there was a lot of characters, but they all felt the same to me. And so it was hard to keep track of really who was who in this book. 11th Cycle by Kian Ardalan was my other DNF. Now this is, as of right now, a soft DNF. Just for now, I want to come back to this one with a different mindset to see maybe if I can appreciate some of the things that Kian Ardalan is doing differently in this book than other books with a different mindset. And then the last book that I have finished in July, well, by the time you see this, by the time July is over, I will have finished this book. That's Grave Peril by Jim Butcher, book 3 in the Dresden series. This one is going to be a 5 out of 5 star read for me. I absolutely love this. It's exactly what I needed at the moment. Our characters develop perfectly. The plot moves quickly. My favorite characters in this book were by far Michael and Bob. Now, let's talk about the books that I'm going to be carrying over. As I mentioned at the beginning, there's going to be a lot because I've got a lot going on right now that I will not finish by the end of today. So, we've got A Declaration of the Rights of Magicians, which was my patron pick of the month for July. I am really enjoying this. This one is sitting at a 4-star rating for me right now, but we'll see by the time I get to the end of the book where it sits. A Dance with Dragons. This is the last book in the Song of Ice and Fire series by George R. R. Martin. This one is sitting at a 4.5 star rating for me. I am absolutely loving everything about this one. Travels with Charlie by John Steinbeck. This is a buddy read I'm doing with Christy at Christy Lewis Dostoevsky in Space. This one is sitting at a 5-star rating for me right now, even though I'm very early on. It's got that honest John Steinbeck prose, but also humor that I was not expecting, and you just feel the love for his dog Charlie in this book. I'm back at making my way through Unmasking Autism. My library loan came up again. This one is sitting at a 3-star for me. This is going to be a slow read still, and it might lapse again. This might continue on several months. We'll see how far I can get in that. Phased by Tori Tekken. This is going to be part of my Self-Pub Sunday series. I am very, very early on in this, just a couple pages in, but so far in the pages that I've read, I absolutely love it. And then the last book that I'm carrying over is Deathless Beast by Andrew Meredith. This one is sitting at a 3-star rating for me right now, but we'll see by the time I get to the end of the book where that falls. And so now the rest of my August TBR. This will include, of course, our next book in Wheel of Time, The Path of Daggers by Robert Jordan, Little White Hands by Mark Cushion. This is my other Self-Pub Sunday book of the month. Weird Sisters by Terry Pratchett. This is my Discworld book of the month. That was supposed to happen in July, but I didn't quite have time, so we're moving that to August. Bone Shroud by Andrew Meredith. Once I finish up Deathless Beast, I'll move on to book 2 in that series. And then a couple arcs that I have. Labyrinth's Heart by M.A. Carrick. This is the 3rd and final book in the Rook and Rose series. I am absolutely ecstatic for this book. I can't wait to start this book. I've been tempted many times in the month of July to start this, but I knew I had to get through my July must-reads before I could start this, so I'm really excited for that. And the other arc I'm super excited for is The Hexologist by Josiah Bancroft. He wrote the Books of Babel series with the Senlin Ascends and Arm of the Sphinx, Hod King, and The Fall of Babel. One of my favorite series of all time, so I can't wait for this new series by him. We've kind of been getting a little bit of snippets from him in his Patreon, but I'm so excited. And then the other book I have to be determined on my August TBR will be my Patreon pick of the month, picked by Ev. Still yet to be determined, but that will be included in there also. There may be a couple others that I slide in depending on how far I get in my TBR, but that is now my July wrap up, my August TBR. Y'all out there watching this, let me know in the comments below, what was your favorite reading moment from July, and what are you looking forward to reading the most in August? As always, my Patreon and my Discord information will be in the description below. Keep reading, and I love y'all to the moon and back. Bye.